Hello.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time. So today we're gathered here to chat all things prego.
Everything.
Yes.
We want to get into the nitty gritty today.
Yeah, or maybe just skim the surface today, and we'll leave some to be desired for round two.
I love it.
Okay. Obviously, you just-ish had a babe.
Yes.
I
have a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Ocean, and she's the best.
Yeah.
And going through pregnancy for your first time can be very scary. It's a lot of information and also a lot of missing information. So I definitely work with a lot of moms who just have questions that are not getting answered. So I thought today you could ask me some questions that you have, and hopefully that will help people out there who are going to be pregnant or are pregnant and just kind of want to know, am I on the right track? What's going on with my body, right?
That is me. Hi, I'm pregnant and overwhelmed. So let's kick it off. I think I have about 6 key questions that have been living in my brain. So we'll start with those. The first one is best foods, like superfoods or just best foods in general to work into my diet while I'm pregnant and expanding.
Yes, expanding, blossoming.
Yeah,
That's a good word.
Okay, blossoming.
So I think most people get confused and think that there's, a big jump from what you should be doing normally when you're not pregnant to when you're pregnant. But it's very similar when I'm working with someone on nutrition. Just because they're pregnant, I always say, you're already doing everything right? You're eating lots of organic fruits and vegetables because you want to get all the nutrients from the good food to the baby. You really want to get your protein in. So they say for pregnancy, 100 grams is a good goal to have for protein. So eggs is a really great source if you get pasture-raised eggs for protein. Lots of vitamins and nutrients in there. If you eat red meat, that's fantastic to add in when you're pregnant, or a wild-caught fish would be really good. We want to amp up our protein when we're pregnant because you are expending a lot of energy building this baby, and protein is really a key nutrient that the baby needs and you need. So lots of good produce and then lots of good protein, and then adding in some good fats. So making sure you have things like olive oils and avocados and nuts and seeds. And then I always had some flaxseed or chia seed in the morning to also help get my fiber up. If you have any constipation issues, which can happen with pregnancy, prunes. Good old sexy prunes are actually delicious. I don't know why people hate on prunes, but
I had some over the weekend.
Great, delicious. Yes, I would have those in my oatmeal or on top of a yogurt bowl or just as a snack too when I was pregnant. And I found that was really nice to add in for a superfood and to help me be more regular. But again, it's just lots of color, lots of variety, animal sources of protein that are good quality, coming from a nice place like Whole Foods or something, and not, we want organic, all of that. And when we do that, we're nourishing us, we're nourishing the baby, and we're good to go.
Perfect. Okay, noted. What are your thoughts on beans? I'm just curious.
Beans are great.
Okay,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, lots of beans.
Okay, great, because that's what I had for breakfast today. Talk about the dreaded fun nausea. So my first trimester, every single day for 3 months, I was barfing, and always at Costco for some reason.
Okay.
Every Costco I had to mark my territory. I don't know what the deal was, but I know some women experience sickness throughout their entire pregnancy. Any tips or tricks? Actually, I know because you've sent me some to help me, but share with the peeps.
Yeah. So everyone's a little different, and you have to find what works for you, but I always say get ahead of it. So if you find out you're pregnant before the nausea hits, you really want to get your nutrients in because there's a chance you might lose your appetite. So a lot of times when people contact me and they're pregnant, I'm like, start eating those eggs and that meat and all those vegetables in case you just start to find it not appealing at some point. So loading early to make sure you're getting those calories in and the nutrients in before it hits you.
Okay.
And then if it does hit you, what works well for some people is making sure their stomach doesn't get empty. So if you can wake up a little early and just immediately put a good piece of toast in, using a high nutrient toast or some crackers by your bed, just not letting that acid build up in your stomach can help a lot. And then eating small meals throughout the day so you don't have a long window without food can make a big difference. I also would say if you lose your appetite for things like vegetables and you don't want those things during the first trimester, I do what I would do for a toddler. So cutting up little veggies and putting them in a tomato sauce, or making a smoothie and hiding some frozen cauliflower in there worked for me. Cooking rice and bone broth was a way to get more calories and protein if you really are struggling to eat.
Those are good tips. I think too, especially as you get further into pregnancy, at least for me, my kind of wave of appetite has changed in terms of things that do sound appealing. Could just also be we're heading into the thick of summer too, so it's just hot and food in general is just kind of meh, but smoothies have been such a great like addition to my life. And I know you sent me some great protein to use for pregnancy, so maybe we can list those for the peeps too.
Yeah, I mean, smoothies are great because you can put so much superfoods in there. So one thing you want to increase when you're pregnant is potassium. So a banana is really easy to throw into your smoothie, and make your smoothie with coconut water, which is good for hydration and getting that potassium up, which can help again with like the nausea and fatigue and things that you have as well when you're pregnant. So definitely adding some more superfoods in. And then if you're using a protein powder, you can get a really good prenatal one. And that's a nice way to get all of your essential nutrients in that way, especially if you're struggling to take the pills, which some people get a little nauseous from those too.
Yeah, perfect. What about this ever expanding, growing body? I know there's so much talk around the pregnancy glow, and especially during the second trimester, which I'm kind of like ending right now. Takes a toll on you mentally of how your body's expanding, of course, in the most beautiful, magical, insane, holy shit, I'm growing a human inside of this thing way, but also like how any tips or thoughts in terms of how to like mentally support your physical expansion during this phase?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's so hard because we're in this society that praises being thin, and we kind of are conditioned our whole life to be thin. And then we all of a sudden go through this very natural, beautiful process of having a human life be born, right? It's against what we've been taught. It's against what society says is right. So all of a sudden growing and expanding and all that stuff can be sometimes overwhelming. So definitely giving yourself some grace, because we've been definitely conditioned. So it's not our fault that we have these feelings and emotions and resistance to the weight gain, but then continually reminding yourself what's actually happening in your body. I would not know the number on the scale. When you go into the doctor, I would just say, I don't need to know what my weight is. So I usually would just suggest avoiding that number. It doesn't matter as long as you're eating well and taking care of yourself and your baby's growing and everything's good. You don't need to know how much you weigh. And then I think the other thing that really helps is only absorbing positive content. So I just found a lot of people wanted to tell me their horror stories, whether it's their birth experience or how much weight they gained or that they struggled to lose the weight. And I just didn't have time for any of that. So, really putting your blinders on and not absorbing things that were triggering. I unfollowed people on social media that were, super models that were pregnant or things like that, because I found that to be a little bit intimidating and just like, triggering for me. So I think it's about protecting your little bubble and your little space right now, and just surrounding yourself with beautiful, positive people and energy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're that for me. So
I'm happy to be that.
So I appreciate that. What about too, as you head into third trimester and stuff starts getting very real, a few months, birthing a human, what worked for you in terms of kind of preparing yourself to have a really positive, as much as we can control, how did you kind of like mentally go into it to just have as positive of a birth experience as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, it's like anything with mindset. So anytime you're going into something, you need to choose how you want to feel. So I was really adamant that I wanted to have a positive outcome with birth. I didn't control all the details. I tried not to be too rigid in exactly how it all happened, but I knew I just wanted to have a positive experience and go in there just with the right mindset of this is going to be an amazing experience. So anytime I had fears come up or worries or doubts or things like that, I really tried to just go back to my mantras of I'm choosing to have a positive, beautiful birth. I'm going to be safe and protected. This is a natural process. Millions of women go through this. It's a rite of passage. People go back for seconds and thirds. It can't be that bad, right? I had all these kind of things that would run through my head to kind of pump myself up and calm myself down, because the fears are normal, but it's our job to choose to either focus on the fear or focus on the beauty of what's going to happen. So it's really, pregnancy is a big growth for your mind, and it really teaches you to focus on the positive. And then the other thing I'd say is it's like training to be an athlete. So, giving birth is a big event. You burn, 300 calories an hour, depending how your labor goes and what type of labor you have. So I prepared like I was going to go run a marathon. Like before leading up the last few weeks was eating my protein, drinking lots of water and coconut water, going for walks, stretching, taking baths to stay loose and limber. So I felt like I had done everything in my control to prep and prepare. And then lastly, if you're feeling like, it's a lot and overwhelming, working with a doula or a friend who just has gone through it, who's positive and has, really helpful advice. You have to be careful who is coming in your ear. But that can be helpful too. If you feel like you're struggling, don't do it alone.
Yeah. No, I think that's all. I already feel like my blood pressure has dropped. So
I love giving birth. So I know you to say that. Yeah.
I know you've shared that. You said it's just this kind of like wild, euphoric, crazy cool thing.
It is. And before leading up to it, people wanted to share again the story of their birth from the movies, right?
Yeah.
And that I just said, I'm really in a vulnerable state and I just don't have the room to hear your story right now.
Yeah.
And I think that protected me a lot going into it, is I just would shut down nicely people who wanted to tell me anything that was negative. And I went in there determined to have a good birth experience. And even though it was hard and even though it was challenging, the outcome was so incredible. And I think my mindset and preparation really had me teed up to have a good experience.
Yeah, that's inspirational. And I am back copying all of those mantras and thoughts as I share. Okay, thinking too about gearing up, preparing for the marathon. Let's chat moving the bod. So favorite workouts. I mean, especially, I'm someone, I was working out, 5-6 days a week my entire adult life. And I think that's another big shift that's happened for me, just in my stamina and just being tired, but also this urge, of course, to move my body every day. What would you recommend in terms of, best types of movement? Maybe even for those who already were really active before, and then those who kind of are going into pregnancy and haven't been super active. Would you suggest different types of movement for them?
Yeah, I mean, good advice I got when I was pregnant was, if you haven't been doing hot yoga, don't start it when you're pregnant, right? So, kind of work with what you did before and don't pick it up a ton all of a sudden and try something new when you're pregnant. But if you've been doing something like bar or hot yoga or lifting weights, your body's really used to that and you know how to do correct form, you can absolutely continue. I, had to stop running when I was pregnant, but I changed to walking and hiking. So it's making those small modifications. I'd really recommend, I did Pilates when I was pregnant, and then I worked on pelvic floor training. So there's a lot of free YouTubes you can find to just strengthen your hips and all of the areas, your core and things like that. There's great moves that you can do, finding safe videos online. But I'd say, don't be scared to move. Just take it easy when you're there. You're not at the same level you once were. But even just sometimes going to a class, even if I wasn't doing the movements, I would just kind of lay on the Pilates machine and just be like, it's cool. I'm in class. I'm here. And that helped my headspace just to show up or just to take that walk with the podcast on, even though it wasn't a run or things like that. So movement in general is just going to make you feel good mentally, and it's just going to get the blood flowing and endorphins flowing. So any movement's good movement when you're pregnant.
Perfect. Any nutrition advice that I am probably not getting from, my typical OB? Anything that you'd recommend there that keep it in mindset? Yeah,
I first went into traditional OBGYN, and the video they showed me was from the 80s, and it was like, no, you're pregnant. And I was like, okay. And so the advice was very generic. It was like, drink water, take walks, eat healthy. It didn't really get into the details. And I just think there's so many remedies. So if you are suffering from, insomnia or the nausea, or you have a backache or whatever it might be during pregnancy, there's a lot of solutions. So sometimes a doula can be a person that can help get you to the chiropractor or whatever you need to do to kind of fix your body and get in the right space. But a naturopath is also a great person to work with, or a nutritionist. A lot of times, just getting your potassium and your magnesium up, running your labs and seeing where you're falling, and all of your blood work can be really helpful. Your progesterone, a lot of women have low progesterone, and we can fix that during pregnancy, which regulates your energy and regulates how you feel. So there's just a lot of solutions. So don't be scared to ask, and don't be scared to look out for different resources besides your OBGYN. You can always cross-check with them, but maybe you have a naturopath that you have, or a nutritionist that you're working with, or a friend who knows a lot of that information, and you can cross-check with your doctor some of these natural remedies, because we don't have to suffer as much as I think sometimes we think we do during pregnancy. It just, to me, there's more information than ever out there, and like if we can get our hands on it, it can make pregnancy such a more positive experience.
Yeah, I think that's great too. I mean, I feel like so much about the experience of pregnancy is very like smoke and mirrors, like everything's happening behind the curtains. And yes, there's so much information, but it's almost like so much information to the point of like paralyzation in a sense, because of good old Googs. And I think it's so wonderful having, you know, someone like you that, you know, of course has gone through pregnancy. So you have a very intimate connection to, you know, the things that have worked for you, but also just a different approach to, you know, the mind-body connection when it comes to, you know, fueling yourself in all the different ways, during this wild thing that is pregnancy and childbirth. So
wild rides. Yeah, but it's a beautiful ride. And I'd say like one reframe I say too, because I have a friend and she's pregnant, and she told me, she said, oh, I'm so jealous of men. Like they don't have to, you know, go through all of this and 10 months of not having alcohol and, you know, all these sacrifices I'm making. And wouldn't it be horrible in some ways to not have this experience and to be the man who doesn't actually get to like give human life? I mean, it is such a blessing and such a gift, and it makes me so sad when I hear people bash it, you know, or talk negative about it. So I just think we need more people to come out and talk about how it's freaking awesome that you're pregnant. It's a very short time, even though it feels like a very long time. And once it's gone, you go back to normal life. You know, you have your little baby, and like you kind of forget, like, wow, that chapter was crazy. Like I gave life to a human. So I think like reframing and realizing this like whole experience is an opportunity for growth. And I would be very sad if my husband did it and I just sat there and watched. Like I feel lucky that I got to be the one to, you know, make my little human inside of me. So it's a very cool, special, privileged, amazing experience. And I hope women can just really find some more enjoyment during the process.
I love that. And he agrees. He's
kicking
away.
Is he like,
So,
yeah, go mom.
Yeah, but, well, thank you. You are just, of course, an inspiration in all the ways. I'm so grateful to call you a friend and have you as a confidant during this next season of stretching in all the ways, and much more to come in the land of Prego and Post and Nips and beyond. So stay tuned.
Yep. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments.